Good morning. I'm joined by Steve Varley, a Global Vice Chair of Sustainability for EY. This is really good to speak to you. So, Steve, you went from a major job running the UK, senior partner, all the rest, to take on this sustainability challenge. So what does responsible leadership mean to you, to EY, to your clients?
Well, firstly, Virginia, great to talk to you today, and what a great topic and area to spend time chatting about. This whole area, I think, of responsible leadership, both at corporate level and personal level, is getting a lot more scrutiny nowadays on the back of the pandemic and big issues as well, like climate change. Look, at EY, a large organization, we have over 300,000 people and over $40 billion in revenue. We would have, as you might expect, a codified system that talks about responsible leadership and what we expect from each other. But I think it's a lot simpler to maybe boil it down to a personal level. So what does it mean to me as I go about my daily business? And of course, I've read all the documents that we've created, but maybe that's not my point. Within EY, we have a really good culture of consulting with each other. We talk to each other a lot. And it's a phrase that we use, have you consulted with people? I've consulted with the following. So I think the starting point for responsible leadership is me talking to colleagues when I've got a difficult decision to make, when I witness something that's difficult outside of our view of what our values are. And I think responsible leadership at a starting point is anchored in your personal values and your corporate values as well. But then I can make it even more simple. So for me, a simple person, I sometimes do reflect on decisions where I know that there's such scrutiny on being responsible. So I think about what my kids would say if I had to explain this to them. How would I explain it to my mum and dad, to my grandparents, to friends more broadly? If I was on the stage of public opinion, how would I justify the decisions I've made, what I've witnessed? And I'm like you, I've done my fair share of parliamentary select committees, but that's not, I don't think, the litmus test for me. The litmus test is, frankly, making my family and friends proud and comfortable of the things that I do and my organization does every day. And that feels really personal to me.
It's really interesting how the whole zeitgeist has changed, isn't it? Only the other day, David Attenborough was saying that people will look back on our generation and the climate emergency in the same way as they looked back on slavery. In other words, that we will be condemned if we don't really take action. And that's not just about governments taking action, but it's about businesses taking action and individuals taking action. So what you're saying about consultation, I imagine that gets buy-in. But what have been the most difficult decisions you've had to make in setting your own targets at EY?
Yeah, that target setting area is always a tricky area. Not so much, I think, in some respects of responsible leadership, but where we are at the moment in that topic is what targets should we set around sustainability? So I remember a conversation I had with my global board on how much ambition we should have in the area of carbon reduction, CO2 reduction, greenhouse gas reduction, which I'm sure is a topic of conversation at many boards around the world. And the provocation I gave my global executive was, where do we want to be seen on this leadership agenda? But crucially, how do we want to be judged by the people that we're recruiting tomorrow? Those individuals, typically young people that haven't yet joined us. How do we want to be judged? And maybe that connects back to that David Attenborough position on being judged by future generations on the decisions we make today. I was lucky enough to be at Davos World Economic Forum 2 years ago in a small group meeting with Greta Thunberg, who I must say is a real force of nature, a very slight individual at a personal sense, at a physical sense, but my word, what a great speaker and incredibly compelling. And one of the lines she used really sticks in my mind. She said, we all recognize there's a climate emergency, but we're not acting as if it is an emergency. So at EY, as part of our step forward, we definitely do realize this emergency. And that's why the carbon reduction ambition that we've agreed actually makes us carbon negative in 2021. So we will offset and extract from the atmosphere more carbon than we emit. And without getting fully on my hobby horse around climate change, I think we in business are being tested. We're going to be tested even more by society on this agenda of climate change. And we're a simple business, so we're not a manufacturer. We don't have a big loan book, but what we do is pretty important in judging people's ambitions in this area. And we were keen to have a really progressive position ourselves. That's why we'll be carbon negative this year. We'll remove and offset more carbon than we emit, which is, I think, an incredibly important benchmark for us to set.
It's really impressive. You talked about being responsible in sustainability in other areas, being a motivator for the new workforce. But what does it mean to the financial bottom line? Is this just doing good, or is the commercial interest in it? Is it enlightened self-interest?
I think there is a degree of enlightened self-interest, but the position that we've taken, both as a major organization and the work we do with our clients, is really focused on the value available from being more sustainable. So the conversations we had and conversations we'd have with our major clients is what the upsides are from becoming more sustainable. So, for example, let me try and bring it to life. If you're a consumer products company looking to differentiate yourself, I think sustainability is a key area by which you can make yourself look different, and from that, get higher revenues. Maybe there's some product innovation you can bring to bear. Maybe there are some new customer segments that you can access through these new products. Maybe there's better cross-sell. Maybe there's premium pricing that you can get from your customers because your products are more sustainable. We think with enough imagination, with enough innovation, this new area of sustainability, there's actually a value-led business case to be had. And that's how we're setting our stall out. We think that our carbon reduction ambition will make us more valuable in the eyes of our clients because we're walking the talk. We have some new services that we're taking to market to underpin our ambition. But crucially for us, as an organization that recruits so many young people, and the average age of our employees in the UK, our 17,000 employees, is about 27. And we're the second or third largest graduate recruiter in the UK. So what that population thinks of us is incredibly important. And they are telling us that climate change is one of their top 2 considerations when they think about their favorite employee. That's really important to us.
That's really encouraging. I've been involved in Hull for many years as Chancellor of the University. That's a region with one of the highest carbon burdens. And they have completely transformed the economy with tidal power, thermal power, wind power, hydrogen power. And so it's fascinating to see how a real threat is becoming an economic opportunity. Is that something you see across business?
Yes, I think there's a significant economic opportunity from the so-called green jobs, the green economy. But what we need to watch out for is the transition cost and transition friction to move from pretty much the heritage that we have today, especially in the UK, to perhaps greener pastures of tomorrow. And as you say, Hull and the Humber has done a great job of putting themselves forward in areas like carbon capture, usage and sequestration. That is a remarkable opportunity for Hull and for Humber. But I think we do need some help here. I think the government can be more progressive on its policies, especially crucially in the area of retraining. I've got no doubt that our young people and our academic institutions can help create a new generation of green engineers, green innovators, green scientists, and we in the UK, I think, have got a great track history of that. What we need to watch out for are those that are employed in, let me call them the older industries, the fossil fuel industries, for example. How do we help individuals that are in good jobs, but those jobs may be becoming less useful in the future? How do we help them take part in the green economy? And that for me is about retraining, incentives at a corporate level and at a personal level to make sure those individuals don't get stranded and left behind, because that will create societal tension. And as we know, societal tension can lead to populism. And I think that would be a bad place to go for the UK.
Now, there are strong social implications, aren't there? Tell me, when we talk about financial reporting, EY will know more than anybody, but there are rigorous standards and processes, and it's easy to make comparisons. ESG reporting has often seemed slightly chaotic, different companies measuring different components. Do you see a greater convergence and coherence in social reporting?
Well, what I would say is I think ESG reporting is in its teenage years.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to cope with, at least my teenagers are. It can be somewhat volatile, but on its best day, it's incredibly insightful. I've also said that ESG reporting is like the Wild West, but with no sheriff. Now, there is some good news here. We've had several of the standard setters converging, but we need to actually appreciate that to create the financial reporting standards we know and use today, that took decades of work. And the challenge here is we don't have decades to work before we have a single coherent standard of ESG reporting that's used by everybody. And that is, I think, a significant challenge. If we are to deliver a safer, more responsible future, then ESG reporting has to grow up incredibly quickly. I'm optimistic about that. I like to think I'm an optimist, but I'm an optimist that worries a lot. So I think we should all be worried about it and therefore focus even more on converging our ESG standards into a new coherent, integrated standard that we can all use. We are some years away from that, but if you asked me a few years ago, I'd probably said we're decades away. So we are picking up momentum, which is good news.
So lastly, Steve, you made that big choice. You went from being the UK chair of a highly regarded business, EY, to becoming the global sustainability leader. Was that a good call?
Well, after 9 years of running EY in the UK, I could say maybe tongue-in-cheek, it was quite good to have a pass and a new opportunity. But look, fundamentally, I like to think that I've had a career where I've had the opportunity to make big differences. And what better agenda to focus on than the sustainability agenda? I thoroughly enjoyed the last 18 months in a row. I've learned so much. I've got so much more to learn. But as an agenda that gets me out of bed every morning, an agenda where I think I and we might be able to make a difference, this is a great place to be.
Steve Varley, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.